The Matrix Resurrections is packed with video game references, most of them pretty explicit. But there's a relatively subtle one snuck in amongst the Corpo speak and Christina Ricci cameo. It's right here. The treadmill.
You're thinking this model is a loop or treadmill? Some sort of sequencer evolving a program to do what?
To make a dope walking animation, of course. Okay, actually, in the movie, the treadmill represents the illusion of progress, expending lots of effort and energy without actually going anywhere. It's about the futility of nostalgia and the crushing cycle of capitalism, and about learning to see when you're not actually going anywhere.
I will be caught and killed, and you will be put right back on that treadmill they designed for you, just like they did the last time you tried to leap your way out.
This video isn't about any of those things. It's about literal walking animations, how important they are to get right, and how easy they are to get wrong. The walk is often the first animation a developer will create for a game. It tells us about the characters, about the world, and it's how we learn a lot of gameplay info. Despite all that, it can be really hard to tell just why some walks look off. But by the end of this video, you'll be able to pinpoint exactly where bad animations get off course. Like this one, which, for purposes of irony, I have pulled from Enter the Matrix. Like most animals who locomote, humans are very efficient at walking and tend to move in a pretty regular, cyclical fashion. That's great for animation, especially in games, because it means you can draw a few frames and then play them over and over, and we all sort of know that that symbolizes walking. But we're also very tuned into what a walk looks like. So animators have to get that cycle just right, or we'll intuit immediately that it's artificial. Early American animators codified the walking process pretty quickly. The lowest point is the moment you've transferred your weight to one foot. Then you shoot up as you extend that leg, swinging the back leg forward to repeat the cycle. Arms swing counter to the leg to maintain balance. It's worth noting that this diagram really only represents the walk of a non-disabled person. Somebody using a mobility aid will also follow a pretty regular motion, but it might look different from this. Although there are some alternate experiments, most early video games replicate this cycle pretty well. Each frame had to convey information like speed and directionality, so animators honed in on the two most visible aspects, the limb swing and the head bob. A lot of walks from this era actually only have 2 or 3 frames. They don't alternate the sides the legs are swinging on. Our innate knowledge of walking means we naturally fill in the gaps to make it seem like they are. Mario's walk has the same frames as his run, but the loop is sped up so the arms look like they're really pumping. His overalls aren't just a statement on his respectable plumbing profession, but also really important for readability. They make his arms a different color than his body. No pixels wasted on outlining them, they just pop. And then you have Prince of Persia. It's probably the earliest game to use rotoscoping. The result has an almost uncanny fluidity, despite not having significantly more keyframes. This cycle is really only the basics, a process of making a smudge of color look like a walk. To make it look appealing, you need details. By the early 90s, game consoles were advanced enough to handle some finesse, like Link's little hat bob, or the fluttering Tanuki tail in SMB3. If you look closely, Sonic's ears do an extremely cute little wiggle. These small, almost unnoticeable elements give a sense of liveliness, bounciness, movement. They're stylish. And then 3D animation came along and fucked all this up. Suddenly, you couldn't just use a few strong keyframes or delightful flourishes to convey movement. The old head bob and arm swing just weren't cutting it. The most common missteps of early 3D walks are over-animating, under-animating, and bad speed syncing. Over-animated walks look unexpectedly jaunty. Their elbows stick out, probably to avoid clipping through their bodies and to make easy-to-read keyframes. A slightly too wide stance means an exaggerated motion from side to side, means the Prince of Persia looks like he's a dandy strolling down a garden promenade. On the flip side, walking cycles can look really, really stiff when they're under-animated and lack fine details like butt movement. Harry is holding all of his tension in those glutes. But the speed issue is the one you're most likely to notice. Unlike humans, these characters aren't actually relying on the motion of a walk to carry them forward. There's the speed the animation looks like it's walking at, and then there's the speed the overall model is programmed to move at. They are entirely separate, and it's easy for them to appear out of sync. Pixel games can get away with dragging sprites for 1 or 2 keyframes and it still looks pretty okay. But 3D games don't have that luxury. If the model is too fast, you get foot sliding or foot skating. If it's too slow, you get a treadmill. And turning? Ugh, don't even get me started on turning.
Barry!
Jill!
3D graphics did bring a lot of gameplay benefits, like walking states. Suddenly you can crouch stealth, strafe around enemies, walk with equipment in your hand. And just like with running, having unique cycles for each is important for communicating gameplay information. But more than anything, improved processing power meant more flavorful walking styles. The true aim of old school animators wasn't just to make a walk that looked good, it was to make a walk that defined a character. Lara's walk in Tomb Raider is powerful. You can tell in an instant that she's action ready. Jade's spacewalk is actually a little jog. She's a roving photographer, she's got places to be. Hitman, from Hitman, has a very short stride. He's unhurried, in control, focused. Mario and Link both have what I've come to think of as Tindy arms. They stick straight out from their bodies in a way that gives them a kind of childlike energy. Just look at Mario's arms pump. He looks like he thinks he'll just take off into the sky if he runs fast enough. I think this is very endearing. By the mid-2000s, walking cycles were making big steps thanks to motion capture technology. Fighting games were experimenting with mocap as early as the mid-90s, and soon other AAA studios began investing in it too. And I do mean invest. It takes a lot of space, equipment, and specialized talent to mocap, which is why it remains the domain of AAA studios. But motion capture wasn't a silver bullet. Enter the Matrix was extensively mocapped, but if I slow down this footage, you can see that this run cycle doesn't have a head bob. The animation seems to have a middle axis that it's wiggling around, like a pendulum. Modern mocap animators will sometimes mirror specific limbs to make cycles exactly regular on both sides. My guess is that the devs did the same thing here, only with one half of the body instead of one limb. And without additional adjustments, you get this marionette wiggle instead of a clean bob. But overall, mocapping has really crisped up our walks. And it's for the same reason that Prince of Persia's rotoscoping still looks better than Prince of Persia 3D. If you're recording a real human person walking, that walk looks like a real human person did it. With motion capture, the arm swings and head bobs are all baked in at the bottom level. It gets the basics down quickly.
A lot of it comes down to cadence and nuance, and what I consider, I normally call it the fast 75, which is getting 75% of that for free.
As the animation director for Sucker Punch, Billy Harper has supervised a lot of mocapping, and even done a little himself.
And we just have a bunch of footage of me like running over and over again towards a big bean bag, and somebody with a punching bag just like hitting me and like knocking me down. Like I am the punching bag, the sucker punching bag.
For an amateur, a mocapped walk is just the same as that diagram. It's the basics. The real power of mocap lies with the skill of professional actors like Daisuke Tsuji, who played Jin in Ghost of Tsushima.
We piggyback off of the raw talent that the performance actor brings to the role, because they put a lot into the prep. They do a lot to just really even be able to transform themselves into this other character, that we want to pay homage to that.
On top of their elite skill of walking like how a people walk, actors imbue their performances with subtle character choices. Mocapping a walk means actors and animators can focus on what really matters, telling us something about the character.
If you were to run into him in an alleyway, if you were to see him walking down an alleyway, strip away the armor or whatever, and you would see him, you would say, okay, there's someone that knows how to take care of themselves, but is approachable.
Link's running stride is so long, he's getting airtime. His arms swing wildly, little sweat droplets fly off his head. This is the run of an anxious kid who's doing his best, but is very worried. Compare that to Hitman's sprint. Very little wasted movement, always in control. Bayonetta walks like the whole world is her runway, an incredible and powerful stomp. 2B's full run animation is pushing at the boundaries of what looks possible for a human, which is great because, hey, she's not human. She has a robotic precision and speed that can't be matched. And that's where an animator turns a great walk into a great walking animation. Even the best performance isn't a frame-perfect loop. The data needs to be massaged a lot to get a cycle that's regular, but not too regular. Back in my day, if you got 3 frames for your walking animation, you were grateful for it. Even in early 3D games, a cycle was usually 1 left step, 1 right step, repeat. But the regularity of a short loop can really stick out if you watch them for long enough. Which you're gonna, because it's a walking animation. The more steps you add, the more natural it looks because the less it loops. But that creates a lot more work for the animators. Almost every other action has to work when it's performed off a walk. Every item interaction, dodge, attack. So even if one step is only slightly off from the next, you have to account for that when you blend with any other animation. Turns are a great place to see animation blending in action. Most characters no longer spin in space like they're about to helicopter out of the stage. Or if they do, it moves so quickly into a sidestep, you barely feel it. Instead, the idle state animation blends into a walking cycle in most directions. Some walks include stages where you're just building up speed or skidding to a stop. Others, a step that puts you back into the idle stance. Some characters even lean into curves while they're running. These details are so small, they're hard to notice and appreciate, but they go a long way to making every moment feel more real. Death Stranding has a staggering variety of walks, pun intended. You scramble up slopes. When going downhill, your walk becomes really short since you've got a lot of mass and you need to keep it under control. When you have too much shit on your back, you feel it with every labored step. Of course, there are some issues mocapping can't solve. Over-animating still happens, resulting in walks that are maybe too flavorful for an animation we're gonna have to look at for hours. Some walks tell us more about the animator's desires and expectations than they do about the character. Also, mocapping does absolutely nothing to solve foot sliding and treadmilling. These issues happen at the point where the animation is applied to the character frame. It doesn't matter how great your animation looks, it can still get out of sync.
And we combat it with what we call, like what internally at Sucker Punch we call foot locking over certain frames. And we actually have it in the rig where they can go through and they can set it and keyframe it to like, this foot's supposed to be down for this range. This foot's supposed to be down for this range.
As the name suggests, the foot part of the skeleton remains locked to the ground for certain frames of the animation, so the speed of the character just doesn't matter as much. And setting up those locking keyframes has other benefits too.
We then also figured out a way to use that same sort of like markup to inform things like splashes or like sound effects within that window of time.
These flourishes make a walk feel like it's really connecting to the ground, like each step is a unique stamp on the world. In the sadly short-lived MOBA Polygon, the animators used an Unreal Engine system called speed warping that dynamically lengthened a character's stride as the animation sped up. So when a character's speed increased, like with a temporary power-up, the animation itself would change. This is really important for avoiding that Benny Hill walk look you get from just speeding up the animation. If you want to avoid the Benny Hill walk, funny walks are a staple of comedy because they not only tell us about the characters doing them, they also say a lot about the world those characters inhabit. The Joker's walk in the challenge mode of Arkham Asylum is extremely incongruous with the rest of the world, which fits exactly for his whole deal. To him, this is a normal walk. Rogue Legacy's high-kickin', arm-out prance shows an eagerness for adventure that borders on oblivious. And then there's the Falconer's Walk in Dark Souls 2. I have nothing to say about this, I just wanted to make you watch it. Of course, indie games consistently prove that a great walk isn't just about big mocap budgets. Flavor, style, detail, and strong character designs are just as important for games that aren't striving for perfectly realistic animations.
Like Jin Sakai's walk required Daisuke Tsuji putting his essence into it, a team of animators picking up on that and understanding that, but then also being able to push it in directions that were unexpected. It takes the VFX team going through and creating these little mud prints that would actually literally imprint in the ground every time he'd step. Takes the sound team to get all these different teams involved in just making a walk cycle happen. I think that's, at least for me, that's the magic of making games.
In video games, even the smallest detail, the kind that might go entirely unnoticed, still take a huge amount of effort. That's why it's always worthwhile to slow your roll and enjoy the stroll.